The ripple impacts of good managers. We'll talk about it regarding time off, because it's a big topic with this time of year, with year-end and holidays. But talking about time off and why it's so important for managers to support employees in taking time off, but also for managers who may feel pressure to have employees be accountable and feel like they can't do that. Things to think about in supporting your employees. So with time off, why I say it's so important is because as a manager, you do have these ripple impacts in the very real lives of your employees. You are a very real character to your employees' family and friends as they think about, if that employee has a challenge. Are they going to say, well, you should talk to XYZ, your name, about it? Or are they saying, oh, well, what did they do now? And so you do really play out to them. And as you think about time off, if I'm going to talk to managers, sometimes I'll say, at the end of your career, what do you want your legacy to be? Or if you don't want to talk about it like that, what kind of impact do you want to have? And some people will say, well, I want to make the most money possible. But I say, but really, as you think about it, a lot of times at work, people think about those moments. In the moments where they either felt supported by their manager or the opposite. And so for things like time off, why that matters is because as you go on in your career, a lot of your highlights probably aren't going to happen at work. Work may be a means to an end. You may have really good accomplishments. But a lot of those are things that happen, from vacations to being there for a family member or friend who's ill and being able to actually do that and focus on them. And so for a lot of employees, when they're taking time off, they don't have those clear expectations from their manager. They may worry about requesting time off to start with, or they may be taking time off and worry and they're stuck on their phone or they're on their laptop, or they're worried about not being able to take time off because someone else is. And so as a manager, I say this because the ripple impacts are really real. And as you go on in your career, thinking about who you want to be when you see that person 10 years later that you worked with, and are their memories going to be one of someone that supported them to get the work done, because that is such a part of your job, but also supporting employees in that human aspect. So are those employees, are they able to go to their doctor's appointments and do things like that they need to take time off to just recharge? Are they going to events at their kids' schools if they have kids? Or are they having to miss those because they're worried about asking you about them? And so as a manager, knowing that for your employees, those are the real parts of their lives, and the way that you support them can really matter and have a huge impact. And so I always say to think about your employees in very real terms, and to think about what you want that relationship to be like I say, 10 years, 30 years down the line, and to think about the impact you want to have. But the other is that can be hard as a manager to think, okay, well, I'd love to do that, but I'm accountable. And you have to thread the needle between getting the work done, but also getting it done in the right way. And so sometimes it's thinking about, how can you help employees? So do you have employees that feel like when they have time off, they need to still be getting the same amount of work done, or they don't want to come back to having a pile? What can you do to help with coverage, to help other people jump in, or to help them be able to communicate to others? It's fine. This is going to wait till XYZ. So having those conversations with employees to say, how can I help you better take that time off? Also, at times, knowing that sometimes you will have to be stretched a little thin. Workforces, or people talk about labor staffing, things like that. But sometimes it's just not going to be possible to go according to your plan. So always having those plan Bs. Okay, maybe we can't have quite as many contracts that get reviewed now because we are going to be a little shorter staff this week. But other times we may have more people, so we'll get things done. Or in a restaurant, retail environment. Okay, we'll have to do the best we can with our team. But so thinking about the alternatives and what's going to happen, even if you have, whether it's a few less, or what you can say to help employees be able to have conversations and say, oh, it's going to have to happen next week. And so doing it in a way that preserves relationships and helps get the job done, but those things that you can do as a manager. And knowing that finding ways to support employees, whether it's over the holidays, but to help them recharge and to talk in very practical terms about preparing for that time off. And again, whether it's communicating to people to let them know that they're not going to be there proactively, or talking to other colleagues and having coverage plans. Thinking about that with your teams. And so the one step I'd say is with your team. Is whether you're in an in-person environment, whether you're on your feet, whether you're a hybrid environment, remote, is talking to your team and saying, as you think about time off, what are ways that we can do it that are fair to make sure people can get their time off, but also to better prepare everyone. And just opening that conversation up, and even teeing that up to let people know that that's going to be a topic of conversation. It can be a helpful one because when you start having those conversations, you have more clarity. Because as a manager, often your fear is that someone will, ask where this person is and you won't have an answer, or you'll be scrambling. But having those conversations with team and being candid about your role of getting the work done, but getting it done the right way, can open those up and generate some ideas about how people can cover for each other and help people be invested in making sure that the coverage happens, but also you're showing that you care about them and their lives outside of work. And so that's my tip for today. And I'd love to hear in the comments some of the questions that you have around time off.